My experience was working with my father. I drilled holes when he made fire escapes and the decorative ironworks, and he put me on the drill to drill the holes. My mom suggested that I bring my expertise to Brown & Sharp and make money. On October 12, 1942 was a holiday, but they were working. And he couldn't put me to work because I wasn't 18. I had to be 18 the next day, the 13th. And he put me on the drills. He liked my resume. So that experience, all the machinery at Brown & Sharp that I worked at, I had experience at my father's shop. How was the money? Excellent. Excellent. I'll tell you, I would not have wanted to work in their office because the office only paid about $25 a week. But the factory work, the contracts with the government, like the gunboats, and when we wash our hands in this huge sink, my hands were full of dust and dirt and really greasy. And I'd be washing my hands and the office girls next to me, starch collars, white, had clean hands, and look at my dirty hands and say, oh, look at those hands. Oh, they are awful. Just as dirt. And I'd look up and I'd say, well, you know, Terry, let me tell you something. My paycheck is about 3 or 4 times larger than yours. And after I wash off this dirt, I says, my hands are very clean. I could stand up for my rights. I'd rather have dirty hands, wash the dirt, and collect big money than have clean hands. They only had a clerical job. They didn't read a blueprint or anything. They just had a little filing job. They thought they were the cat's meow because they were an office girl. There's all kinds of office work.
You read the blueprints?
Oh, we read the blueprints, yeah. But you couldn't understand. Your setup man would help you understand it. Although my father was disappointed I was a girl when I was born, he wanted a boy so bad to help him. And I'd be hearing them saying, Valia was a boy, she could go on a job. She could go on a job. And I used to say, well, I'll dress like a boy. Girls didn't wear pants in those days. I said, I'll wear the pants, I'll wear the hat. But I still did a man's job, even though I was a girl. But when I turned 18, I said, aren't you glad I'm not a boy? I says, because if I were a boy, I'd be shipped overseas in the service, like all my other friends at school were, and perhaps I never would have come back. But here I am on the home front helping you. He had no answer to that. No wonder my father used to say to my mother, my daughter is made of iron. He'd say it in Italian. Mia figlia è fatto di ferro. And I'd say, yeah, I'm made of iron, all right. Well, I was skinny, but I was full of vinegar. Well, I wore coveralls, and they were one piece. And I made sure they were nice and clean, and I always had a little nice crease on the sleeve. And Joe Downing, every day he'd go by, he'd like to look at that crease. And he'd say, a pretty girl is like a melody, he used to sing. And he used to like to see me get all red. He says, even her neck gets red, look. And we wore safety shoes, too. And they provided us with the shoes, the hat, and the coveralls. Who were my coworkers? Well, I sat next to this woman. Her name was Nina. Her husband was in the service. And when you sit next to somebody all day, they want to know your background, where you come from, how many kids in your house, and all that baloney. So I told her, I says I was one of 12 children. She didn't believe it. She says, you know, who are you kidding? I never heard of such a thing. So all morning long, I couldn't convince her. So when lunchtime came, Mrs. Nina Bell, whose husband was in the service, we were washing our hands, and she says to this girl, Judy, what do you think of somebody who's trying to tell you she's one of 12 kids? And Judy says, well, I wanted 13. So she didn't say anything. She said, oh my God, bye-bye. So someone had even more kids than us. So I still couldn't convince her. I said, well, some night I'll take the youngest ones over. And I did. I took 2 buses to visit her at Pine Service Avenue. And she says, oh, they're your neighbor's kids. I said, oh, they're not. Ask them. I said, are you really Val's sister? They says, yeah, they're 2, 3, 4 years old. She was just too young to take 2 buses with me, but the others. And we finally convinced her. I said, it was unheard of. She went days on end. She never heard of a large family. Oh, the girl down south. Oh, Georgia. Georgia was a little spitfire married to a Navy man who wore false eyelashes. I had never seen false eyelashes. And I see her plucking them, taking them off and on. And we called her Georgia. I never knew her name. We had a lot of Navy men's wives working there because Kwanzaa was where their husband was stationed. And they wanted to be close to their husbands, and they got themselves a job. And they were a different type of girls. You know, outgoing, fun. They were older than I was. You know, they married to servicemen. And very happy people. And they joined the Glee Club, a few of them. And then they left when their husbands got shipped out. They followed their husband to another place. But one girl was Alabama and the other one was Georgia. I never knew their names because they were a little bit older than I was. I just called her Georgia and I called the other one Alabama. Glee Club was really one of the most nice activities to look forward to. It on a Tuesday we would rehearse. We would rehearse with Ivy Whitehead was the teacher, and we put on operettas, the Gay 90s show, a Christmas concert. And amazing, those workers were wonderful singing boy voices and how talented they were. So they entertained us and they sold war bonds on lunch hours. It was a Thursday. There was a lot of activity in that courtyard, men and women. It was a nice lunch hour. You could bring your lunch outside and listen to the music and then go back to work. And Tuesday evenings was nice for rehearsal. I cooked spaghetti and meatballs, and we invited Henry Sharp Jr. for lunch. He was a couple of years older than I was. I'd look at him and he'd look at me and I'd say, you're Mr. Sharp. I'm just a drill worker. I said, you never want to get entangled with me. When you got laid off from Brown and Sharp, you could have gotten a job there in the office. But I didn't even think of it. But I don't think they would even hired me because I was not a secretary or a stenographer or a bookkeeper. Then, but after Brown and Sharp, I took some accelerated courses at night and I became a secretary and a bookkeeper. And I worked as a telephone operator 42 years. So I was knowledgeable in the office at the electric company. I still made out very well. I have Sophia Loren. I've been her fan. I've admired her for years and years because that girl, I've read her stories and I've seen her movies. She kept me entertained and I understand her life. And one day when I was on the switchboard, when it wasn't busy at night, I wrote her a little note and told her how I enjoy her movies and this and that. She said my letter made her cry. May your life be a bed of roses, she said, when I received your letter. And I've been writing to her since. And I finally got to meet her. I met her 3 times, and she was with me. My sister Beverly met her with me. We went to Florida. We saw her. And I have all kinds of books on her. Her biography intrigued me. She came from Pozzoli in poverty. And I'm saying, well, That little girl, when she was listening to all those bombs, I was making money in Brownlee shops. Imagine. I was making money. She was listening to the bombs. And I have a lot of faith in God. I do. I did make up for it. He's been good for me. He's let me live a long life. 96. I'm going to be 97. I says, if I live to be 100, that's 3 more years. And I'm not ready to go yet. But it's in God's hands, and he really did do a lot for me. He showed me the way.